you very much, man. Happy to be here, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you. First question. Where you originally from? Where were you born?
Let's see. Originally from Falls Church, Virginia, but my dad worked for IBM, so I moved every 2.5 years. So I would say I grew up Merritt Island, Florida, which is like Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, where the shuttle goes off. So I moved there fourth grade till I graduated high school.
Okay. Second question is, who were your role models growing up? Who were your influential person growing up in life?
Wow. I'd say my parents, my mom and dad. Like it was funny. A few years ago, my son had asked me, who was my favorite player when I was a kid, and I had to stop and think. I was like, well, I didn't really have one. A, because we didn't have internet. B, I thought I was better than them anyways. Where I grew up, we had very successful sports teams. I was not the only kid to play pro football from my high school. I actually played high school ball with other guys who played pro football along with me, plus other guys who had been there before me that had played pro football. And so it was kind of like in the water. And the community of Merritt Island we have this thing about with greatness. And, when you meet anybody from Merritt Island, especially during the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, you definitely you understand why, because we kind of all act the same as far as we think we're the best at everything, and we go out and we go get it.
Okay. In high school, other than football, did you play basketball?
Yeah, I did. I played basketball. That was before I worked on a left hand. I never had a left hand, but I never been dunked on either. I was just a big body, as my kids say now, who both played collegiate football, collegiate basketball. Is that I played basketball like a football player, but I also tell them, like, hey, listen, I did get recruited to play basketball to 4 schools: Florida, Florida State, Miami, and Fresno State. That's my claim to fame as far as basketball. But football is what I was known for, by far, much better and more renowned than I was in basketball.
Other than the tight end position, did you play other positions while you playing football in high school?
To tell you the truth, no. My high school was pretty, like I said, we were a pretty good team program back then. However, so say a team was a big game. If another team got maybe within our 20 yards, I'd play a little bit of defensive end, outside linebacker or defensive end. But truthfully, we didn't two platoon it. Meaning, we had guys went both ways. You had a position, you played that position, because we had more than enough guys on our team. Like I said, we had guys going D1 all over our team.
Okay, so let's fast forward to your college years. Talk about the schools that recruited you, that was looking for yourself to be on its program.
Sure.
Talk about the scholarships that were offered, like the teams that were like reaching out.
So I was very, very fortunate. My story goes, I didn't play football till the 9th grade. So in Florida at that time where I lived, that was junior high. So 9th grade I played. We were 7-0. Then 10th grade was high school, and we have spring football. And I was one of 3 guys that actually played varsity as a 10th grader. And then by 11th grade, I was the #1 tight end in the country. In some publications, the #1 football player. In others, I was like number 3 behind Tony Marinovich. Oh, not Tony. What the heck's his name?
Mandarich?
Mandarich. No, not Mandarich, but the quarterback.
Oh, Todd Marinovich.
Tom Marinovich, yeah. Out of Southern Cal. And Brett Johnson, who I actually ended up playing with his brother out of UCLA. I was very fortunate. I was just right place, right time. So I pretty much could go anywhere. I was the #1 tight end in the country, USA Today, All-American, and Parade Magazine Player of the Year. For me, it boiled down to 3 schools. It was Miami, Florida, and Notre Dame. And, it was very hard. Then it came down between Notre Dame and Miami. And I ended up going to Notre Dame.
Okay, what made you want to go to Notre Dame and play in South Bend, Indiana? What was your
Wow.
reason for
You
that?
know what? It was a true gut feeling. There's a bunch of guys from my high school that were at Miami at the time. two guys, my class that were going to Miami. But for me, it was really just a gut feeling. I'll never forget the day. It was sometime in the fall. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, it was in the fall, and I was like the only person at home. And they had, I got given a tape, "Wake Up the Echoes," and I popped it in. I watched it. I watched it several times, but I just got goosebumps. And I was tired of fighting it. I wanted to play. I wanted to go to Miami, but back in those days in the '80s, that was when they were coming to you, and it was the real deal. Those guys were good. That was good teams. But I literally went on my gut feeling, said, you need to go to Notre Dame, and so I followed my instinct.
Who was the person that recruited you? Was it Lou Holtz or somebody else?
Oh no, it was Lou Holtz. His recruiting coordinator was actually Vinny Serrato, who played a major role. He was an excellent recruiter. That's why during those times we had the top recruiting classes. He went on to actually work for the 49ers and then eventually the Redskins for a number of years. He was probably the one main driving force behind it. And he was an excellent recruiter. Got to know my family, got to know my sisters, my mom, and some of my close friends as well. They did it right.
All right, so let's get into some of these games during your great career as a fighting Irishman. Notre Dame. Let's get into the first game. The first game you go against Michigan, and you win 19-17. Reggie Holt gets 4 field goals.
Yeah.
Very low scoring game. Talk about that matchup.
Well. That was the first game under the lights. That was when they brought in these big trucks, and but actually, it was I think it was the first time that Notre Dame had a night game. And the matchup, as usual, Notre Dame, Michigan, regardless of records, that's typically a good matchup. But thankfully, with Reggie Ho, he kicked, I think it was like you said, 4 field goals that game. It was just. On that team, that was really just the beginning of, we didn't realize at that point, obviously, being the first game of the season, just how good we would end up being. But, looking back on it, we just had a great mixture of old school players that had, D1 college experience. And then we also had a youth wave of new school players such as myself, the class ahead of me, with Ricky Waters, Todd Light, Pat Terrell. Even though Pat was 3 years ahead of me, but he was from Florida. So, that's why we brought that swagger, that chip on the shoulder of play. It was to the point where, we probably didn't respect the older players just because they were older. They had to prove it to us because we went in there, we were very talented. So we had a youth movement that was like, look, I'm going to take your job. And if you beat me, so be it, but you're not going to beat me.
Yeah, that was a big win, and that was number 13 versus number 9. The squad
Yep.
was preseason number 13. Michigan was preseason number 10, but they moved up to number 9, and the squad was number 13. We'll fast forward to obviously the game of the year that season in '88, Miami versus Notre Dame. Obviously, that was a school could have went to Miami. They had a 36-game winning streak. They were the defending champs. They were dominant. Talk about the preparation looking forward to that game. Obviously, Catholics versus convicts and all that. Talk about that week leading up to that great game.
Yeah, I tell you what. So leading up to that game was funny. Miami was known for having people call players, during the week, and of course, having close ties to Miami back then. I got phone calls, hey, we're gonna kick your ass, this, that, and the other. That week leading up to it, but by then that was the 5th or 6th game of the season. And we had some pretty good games prior to that, and I think we started believing, and we knew that watching that tape and everything, we just didn't buy into the Miami lore. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Miami the game before had just had a comeback win against Michigan last couple seconds. Lord knows what number of comeback wins that was for them. They had that knack. But like I said, we had a youthful exuberance about us, a chip on our shoulders. And truthfully, it's funny, even though it was Catholics versus convicts, the players, for us, it was the game. You know, we knew that they were, you know, a very good football team, fundamentally sound. You know, yes, they did play with, you know, reckless abandon. You know, they like to celebrate. But being, like I said, being from Florida, to me, that was all part of it. And, you know, people get kind of, you know, it's college football. It's not IBM. You know, it's entertainment. So they want to put a good product out just like we wanted to. But we really just went into one big thing that Holtz pounded into us was, you know, you take care of the small things, big things take care of themselves. And literally every week we go over what our goals were for that year. And it all started with, you know, winning all your home games, winning, you know, having a winning season, beating USC, and then, you know, going to a bowl game, going to a January 1 bowl game. You know, back then it was only like 4 or 5 games that were January 1. That's the games you wanted to be playing. And then ultimately win a national championship. We knew that, you know, you didn't win one, you would wake up to it. And, you know, when you read about it in the papers. And so literally the whole approach was very down to minute thing as far as how we practice to perfection, hand placement, don't take too long to step. And they had the coaching staff to do it. I mean, you had Barry Alvarez, who went on to do great things at Wisconsin, was our defensive coordinator. Joe Moore is probably, arguably, the best offensive line coach ever, you know, in college. As a matter of fact, they give an award now, the Joe Moore, you know, offensive line award, you know, to the offensive line unit. You had, you know, Peter Cordelli. You had, I think it was Peter Foster then. I forget who, but you know, numerous coaches that went on to do great things. And yeah, I mean, we just took care of the little things, and we were like, listen, we just gotta, you know, that ball is the same thing on the east side of football, you know, and there's no reason why we couldn't go out there and win, you know, match their intensity and stay disciplined, and that's what ultimately happened. And I know everybody wants to talk about that the 1 yard line fumble, if it was a fumble or not, but hey, you know, I have to commend Jimmy Johnson down there and say, look, don't make it close up there. You know, if people want to say that's home field advantage, well, so be it. You know, don't put yourself in that situation to where you leave that game or leave certain plays in the referee's hands.
Yeah, the Cleveland Gary fumble, that's known for that fumble. Also, was you able to see the documentary about campus versus convicts? ESPN 30 for 30. That a few years ago, they talked about how Andre Brown actually didn't catch that ball.
Right.
He dropped it. And yeah, if they had instant replay at that time, that would have been overturned. It wouldn't have been a catch.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it was like, you know, a bad break. You know, they got a bad break. You know, you got a bad, you know, a break with the fumble.
Sure.
They got a break too at the same time.
Yeah.
They should have got, you know, that touchdown call. You know,
absolutely. And that's not to distract. I mean, literally, though, that was an ultimate great game. You know, we did some things on offense. See, people didn't realize we had actually, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure we had more guys that ran a sub 4.4 than they did at the time. So we had some really fast guys, you know, and Holtz learned early that speed kills. And, you know, one thing I get to toot my horn about that game is between our two teams, on those total football teams, not just starters, there were 63 guys who signed a professional contract between those two teams. You know, think about that, the talent that was on that field that particular day. And, you know, and what was close to dear to my heart was there was 3 guys from my high school that played in that game. Myself, Hurley Brown, actually 4. You had Bubba McDowell, Hurley Brown, Daryl Spencer, and myself.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, defensively, Notre Dame played great. Frank Stamps and 2 forced fumbles. Tackles, you know, they got after Walsh, you know, he was able to, you know, sack him, hit him, force fumbles, you know, get in the backfield, get after him, also interception by Pat Terrell, and for a touchdown. So we jumped on him, and you know, obviously they came back. That was such a great game, despite what happened at the end.
Oh, absolutely.
And he was.
he was like, I guess you can kind of say he was kind of, thinking back, he's kind of like the Tom Brady of that era as far as college, meaning if you to beat them offensively because he had so many weapons and they were so good, you had to get to Steve Walsh. You got to get to the quarterback, lay hands on him, get hits on him, touch him, put pressure on him. And I think, that's exactly like you said. That's what our defense did. And I think, Miami was kind of shocked. And I had the pleasure of Tiger Clark, Bernard Clark, was actually up here in Albany, a linebacker coach, assistant head coach here for Albany. And we got together and on ESPN radio up here. And, we were talking about that game. It's kind of interesting to hear his side of it where, we had that little fight in the tunnel.
Yeah.
And to hear that side of, like, coming from Miami, it was like, they were like, hey, listen, these guys ain't backing down. So we got to go out here. This isn't going to be some, they're not pushovers. They were Notre Dame of old. And literally, we walked in there like, in that locker room, we were ready to play. We were ready to fight in the parking lot, outside the parking lot. We had that, I guess you would want to call it, that street credibility too at that time.
Yeah, like you said, you talked about the speed. That's what made that game different, is that you had Rocky Ishmael, Ricky Borders, Tony Brooks. I'm correct me if I'm wrong, Tony Brooks. He's a running back for number 40. That just himself,
Tony Rice.
Yeah, Tony Rice, obviously, yeah. So it definitely was going to be a much different game than the past because, like you said, the speed. You said you had more guys that ran a sub 4.42, something like that.
4.4.
4.4.
Yeah, 4.4. Yeah.
Rocky, obviously, he definitely. I'm gonna get into him in a few.
Yeah, I got a story about him. I'll tell you about when he ran his 40 time at our basically the first day of freshman camp.
Yeah,
pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm getting to that. Okay, the last game of that regular season obviously was much kind of like overlooked because the Miami Notre Dame game was the big game, but you had to beat USC on the road. They were number 2 in the country. Your squad was number 1 in the country. So you go into Southern California, you win eventually 27-10. Talk about that game.
Well,
Hello? Having technical difficulties. Can't hear him. Can you hear me? I can't hear Derek Brown right now. Technical difficulties right now. I can't hear Derek Brown, so I don't know what's going on. My ears in. Can you hear me, Derek Brown? Having technical difficulties. His mic went out, so we'll get back in. His mic right. Right now, I'm interviewing Derek Brown. So far, so good. This interview is off to a great start. We're talking about 1988 college football season. Unmute your mic. Can you unmute your mic? Yeah, unmute your mic, Derek Brown. Okay.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah,
Good.
I'll see you on with the USC Notre Dame game.
Yep. So for that game, for whatever reason, I didn't start that game. I got in a little bit, but I did not start that game. I had started against Pittsburgh, which was our 5th game. Played in every game. Played some in Michigan, different formations in Michigan State, Purdue, and then Miami and Pittsburgh. That game was a huge game. Like you said, it was 1 versus 2. Out there. I think that's probably been the first time. And then I think one thing that definitely gets overlooked was, we won a national championship. And I know some people are like, oh, Notre Dame, blah, 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 they're not that good. We were damn good that year, or doing those 4, 8, probably 8, 10 years. That year, we beat 4 out of the top 7 teams that year. Hasn't been done since. Nobody goes through and makes a schedule where, we beat the Pac-10 champ in USC. We beat the Big Ten champ in Michigan. Back then, remember the WAC conference, which was Air Force, that champion, we beat them. and then we beat number four. The fourth one was Miami, right, an independent school. So, um, yeah, no, that game was definitely tough. But again, I think by then we just believed and we prepped that way. We knew we were going to win that game no matter what, and we just went in there. You know, we built on our foundation was built from day one, and I do have to take my hats off to Holtz and just my teammates for buying in to what he was preaching at the time, and you know, we were able to rally our defense. Our defense, you know, that I remember that big old hit that I think it was Zorich put on Rodney Pete. You know, it was one of those what we call a decleater, where Rodney Pete threw an interception and got decleated by one of our defensive linemen. Where you know you see him on his TV screen, and then the next second you don't because he got leveled.
Yeah, Frank Stamps had a big game, 9 tackles, 2.5 sacks. Also, Tony Rice went 65 yards for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
He went down the sideline, got the ball. You know, he went down the sideline. Also, this game was played without Tony Brooks and Ricky Waters. They didn't play. You still won convincingly. So it shows you that depth of talent that you had win that game against number two team in the country. That again, that game gets overlooked, overshadowed because Miami,
Yeah.
game was game of the year. It was. So,
Yeah.
that's a big win.
No.
So,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's get into the Fiesta Bowl. Go
Mhm.
against West Virginia. Obviously, win that game 34-21. National champions again. Major Harris was a big time quarterback at that time. And talk about that game winning 34-21 against West Virginia.
So you know, going into that game, that was a very mature old team. I mean, they had linemen that were fifth year seniors. You know, I remember going to some of the dual team functions. You know, some of the linemen were married, had kids. I mean, they were old, and so they were like grown men. And like you said, Major Harris was another version of Tony Rice, not quite as good. I would say. Of course, he was my quarterback, so you know that's why I say it. But he was good in his own right, absolutely. But the key to that season was what you said was our defense. Every big time quarterback that we played, we got after, and literally they got hurt in some form or fashion because they got hit, knocked down. You know, starting with Steve Walsh in Miami, Rodney Pete, and of course people don't remember this game here. I believe it might have been the third play of the game. I think it was Wes Pritchard put a hit on Major Harris, and he had a messed up shoulder that whole game. So you know that definitely contributed to that. And then you know who would have thought that? I think Tony Rice only threw he threw like less than 10 passes, I believe, in that game. If not, somewhere around 10 passes, and ended up being the MVP. I was fortunate to be on the receiving end of two of those passes. I had a big game that game. I was two for 70, two catches for 70 yards. So, you know, myself, I had a field day too. And again, I think what it boiled down to was the speed that we had acquired that year, where we were just all over the field, like pulling with them. Yeah, you know, it was at that game. You know, it was in our eyes was never close.
If we won the Miss 34-21, next season itself years. Now obviously the champions. This is number two. Start the season off. Played in East Rutherford, New Jersey, in the Old Giant Stadium. Kickoff classes.
Yep,
The first
against Virginia.
Virginia's first sellout in seven-year history. Kickoff classes. Win 36-13. Talk about starting off great against Virginia.
Well, again, you know, by now, you know, we were 12-0, and again, just how Holtz kind of prepared us. It was just like, hey, you know, you start from scratch again. We, you know, with the goals, everything was like, you know, step by step. Win, win half your games, win your home games, have a winning season, same thing. And now we had a year under our belt as far as freshmen, and now our juniors moved up to be seniors. Seniors like Pat Terrell, you know, I think Ned Belcar came back for a fifth year. No, yeah, Ned Belcar was on that team, if I'm not mistaken. So we matured. We were that much better. And then now, you got guys. My backup was Irv Smith, at tight end. And during those days when not a lot of people really cared about the tight end, you had my backup was would end up being a first round pick, and had a nice long career in the NFL. And it was like that all over the place. So, in that game, you know, as good as Virginia was, I don't want to disrespect them, but we were like in another class by now, and so that game, kind of went as expected.
Mark Ishmael had 5 catches for 121 yards. Borders had 8 yards rushing, 2 yard touchdown run. Let's get into the game. That was the game early in that season. It was number one versus number two. Michigan was pieces number one, number two in the country. It's number one versus number two. At that time, it served up as 25th matchup of the top two teams. It was early in the season. With that such media, that game was obviously coming out party of Rocket Ishmael.
Yeah.
12 returns, one for 88 yards, one for 92 yards as Fighting Irish then win 24-19. Talk about that game.
Yeah, we went up to Michigan that game. It was again great conditions, and we had. It goes to show that speed kills. I mean, yeah, we had Rocky who ran a 4.2, 4.28, 4.25, but you had guys like his lead blocker was Rodney Culver, God rest his soul. He was on that value jet crash a number of years ago. Um, he was a 4.5, 4.4 running back. You had Irv Smith, who was another 4.5 guy. There's just so much speed all over, and when you with a football team or any kind of sports team, when you get as a coach, when you get to that point where all you're doing is coaching, you're not like policing the players, trying to get them motivated or whatnot. When you have players that know what the bar is and they're kind of like, hey man, you got to bring your A game, or you're not, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, man. You got to, get back in that playbook. We put that pressure on guys. Coaches didn't have to do that, so we were policing ourselves then. So now we were basing on automatic, where, listen, man, the bar's up here, and if you're not performing like that, your backup was going to take your spot because we were that good. In our eyes, the second best team in the country was our scout team.
Yeah, talk about the story about Rocky Ishmael.
First day we get there, and we line up to get ready to run 40 so he can get numbers on us and stuff. So Rocket was in front of me, and got down in the sprinter stance. He gets out, but he stumbles and kind of bear crawls a couple of yards on all fours. Gets up, and he still ran a 4.28. My hand to God, that's how fast he was. And his 0 to 100 was just so quick. He wasn't one of those guys that, it took a little while to get up there. Nah, it was 0 to 100, bang, and he was at full speed.
He was dangerous, man, because he was like Bob Hayes, right? For those who are listening right now, Bob Hayes was playing for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
The world's fastest human coming out of Florida A&M. He was so fast, man. And that game really put him as a superstar.
Oh yeah.
Football, man.
Yeah. And it was funny, back then too. And then it was funny, like we would sit there and watch, like as a player, and you would see a punt, or especially on punt, or even on kickoffs to some degree, but especially on punt. Depending on how that punter punted the ball, you knew halfway up, you're like, oh, he's gonna take this to the house. Like this is just, I could tell. He didn't outkick his coverage, or he didn't put enough hang time on there. It's just like, all right, it's just a matter of time. When Rocky gets that ball in his hand, it's gone. And then you got guys on his team blocking for him who totally believed in him, and they took pride in getting him into the end zone. So that's a combination that teams that played us, they really did not want.
Okay, the next game I want to get into is the Southern California game. This is a big game. Top of Rinovich.
Yeah.
You win 28-24, and there was a pregame fight. You win 20-24. Talk about recollections of that game.
So yeah, same thing. That was That was a team that had Junior Seau and, if I'm not mistaken, Mark Carrier was still there, I believe, but definitely Junior was there. They had a very, very stealth defense. But again, they were those guys who were big, they were strong, they were fast. They had a great quarterback who was cocky as well, and Tom Marinovich. But I tell you, like I said, by then, I forget what game of the season that was. This is going on our second year being undefeated. So we definitely bought in and believed that no matter what, if we keep doing our little things, keep hand placement, pad level, footwork, if we execute our game plan, we're going to win. And lo and behold, that's what it was.
Next game, Penn State. Penn State was ranked number 17 in the country, number one, and beat them 34 to 23. And also, this was ran the ball extremely well. Ran for 425 yards to win for the first time in the state college in 76 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Rice ran for 141 yards. This win, Notre Dame, this great at running that football. Win Boys had 128 yards rushing. Rushing had 84 yards rushing. And, this win was the 23rd straight win for Notre Dame and 11th straight against opponents ranked in the top 25. So just had that confidence that you're going to beat anybody. Rightfully so. Talk about that win at Penn State.
Yeah, that was a huge win. And again, it goes to just the preparation and the mindset that we're going to win. We're going to go out there, and the fact that it doesn't have to be close. Why make it close if we don't have to? It was that obviously that pressure to keep the winning streak going alive. And I think that game was just where our running game, everything clicked. I mean, we ran a wishbone, right? Triple option type of stuff. Not triple wishbone, but we ran a triple option. You have a quarterback like Tony Rice. You had running backs, Tony Brooks, Ricky Waters, Rocket Ishmael. But, let's not forget about that line. On that line, you had Mike Help. By then, I think you had Mike Help. You had Dean. Oh no, Dean Brown had already graduated. Actually, no. Dean Brown was there as well. Tim Grunhard had left. But again, when you have the best offensive line coach in Joe Moore prepping those guys, it's right place, right time. Everything came together in our running game. And, when you had a defense that could get the ball back and get it to us, to give us more opportunities to do our thing. Again, that's an ugly combination that if you're an opposing team, you didn't want to see that.
Okay, so on the 23 game win streak, 23 games in a row, rolling on. Now you play Miami. This is a team that was looking for revenge. Unfortunately,
Catholics versus convicts too.
Unfortunately, lost the game. Unfortunately, 27-10. What went wrong in this game? Because everything was so crisp and flowing before this game.
Let me tell you, that game was the one game that I think if you sat Coach Holtz, he might regret one thing. Was beginning of that game in the locker room, Holtz had said, listen, if anybody gets in a fight, that person would not be playing in that game. And of course, when we walk out of the tunnel, Miami's standing at the 20, taunting, doing their hurricane thing. And, Coach Holtz didn't let the dogs off the chain and kind of held us back a little bit. So I think that took some wind out of our sails a little bit. And, even though I think what you said was 27-10, it actually was not. The game itself, the physicality of it, that score, it was a much closer game than that 27-10 score. But again, you know what? They came out on top. We had them on a 3rd and 44. What's his name? Randall Hill caught a 3rd and 44, man. And that kind of crushed us a little bit. And then we actually threw a pick right before the half. Actually, I think it was a pass coming to me. And so that one hurt us. And usually in a football game, you can go back to, one, two, maybe three plays that could have went either way and really could either, win or lose the game a lot of times. But again, that was a great game. It was a great environment. We loved being on the road. The best thing to do was just shutting up a crowd. However, I think not being able to warning shot by them that hurt us.
Yeah, I said Bernard Clark, he made that interception. That was no perhaps significant view. Yeah, examples of interceptions. Also, on some research, Rocky Ishmael had a separated shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Mm-hmm.
was 100%. But yeah, Del Dogs had 2 touchdown catches. Yeah, that catch, third down. I think it was third down and 43. But either way, that was a crazy, play. Defensively,
Yeah.
what kind of defense was Notre Dame in? Because how can defense like that allow that? It's like
I know. You know what? I wasn't on defense. Unfortunately, I don't remember what defense they were in. But yeah, all I know is that Thrill Hill, that one hurt us. That one hurt us. And Dale's 2 touchdowns that didn't help either. Dale, who by the way went to my arch rival high school, Vero Beach, and actually first time in a long time, he actually got drafted to the Jets and played there for a number of years. I went home not too long ago, about a month or so ago, and we were able to connect actually.
and the game's turning point also came when Miami territory in the third quarter, when the ball popped up to the air. Devon McDonald really caught it. What
Yeah.
turned for a touchdown. Talk about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's people call it the luck of the Irish, whatever. But it's funny. The harder you work, the more lucky you seem to be. And that was a huge play for us. What could have been, Devo, who had a twin brother, actually played for Pittsburgh, and they both actually went on to the league as well. Came up with a huge hit, and it was beautiful. It was great to see.
Okay, so playing the Orange Bowl against Colorado. This is an even bigger game. Colorado now is number 1 in the country. The squad is number 4. And you beat Colorado 21-6. You think Colorado was winning the national championship. So about that also did Miami a favor of being them because that led them winning
Right.
the national championship.
See,
So about that.
I may sound bitter because I am. What really stinks about that is we still had the best record in the land because we had that extra game. So we were, we ended up being the season 12-1 when everybody else did not have an extra game. But because we lost late in the season, we were out of contention for the national championship, even though we still had the best record in the land. That game, that's when they had, was it, oh my God, Eric the Enemy, Darian Hagan. And then there was another running back they had, Darian Hagan, Eric the Enemy. I believe there was another one too. They had some speed demons there. What's his name? Head coach there. He took a page out of Jimmy Johnson's playbook too of recruiting speed. It was a very tough game, low scoring game. But that just goes to show you really how both of our offenses kind of matched, where they had a running quarterback, they had very strong runners, as we just mentioned, and they had a very stout defense. It was going to be one of those. It was one of those games where whoever made the most stops and made the less mistakes was going to win the game, and we were able to pull that off.
Rashad Ishmael had 108 yards to play the tailback.
Yep.
Plays on tailback.
Mm-hmm.
34 yards outside. Also, average offense. Drive, 17 straight runs. 9 minutes on the clock.
Yep.
It was one of the most devastating drives in history. Anthony Johnson. Touchdown. That was an impressive win for Notre Dame. You go into the offseason now, 1990.
now we have Rick Meyer at the helm. Was our quarterback then, and the talent level was not almost at its peak, but very 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 good. And this just goes back to that belief that no matter what kind of adversity that we have in front of us, we're going to come out on top. And that game there went back and forth. Literally, that play, if I remember correctly, the last scoring drive, which gave us that lead, was a ball that tipped off of Adrian Jarrell, and we were able to convert a first down to keep our drive going. Without that quote unquote luck, that game could have went the other way.
That's the Michigan State game. I was referring to Michigan game.
Oh, okay. That all right. Well, almost the same thing happened because we had to come from behind against Michigan because I think that was the game where Rick ended up being on the cover as the Golden Boy. I think he scored the first touchdown that game on a little option, even though he was going to be like a throwing quarterback, for that game. But again, that was a fairly close, even not even game necessarily, but I should say evenly matched, and they definitely we had to take it to the wire, and that's when we had kind of developed that kind of cardiac kid type of reputation of just stick to itness, keep working, good things will happen.
Michigan was up 24 to 14. Our second touchdown back. John Bowen had to make 21 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Most yards in the last 2 years. Fight Irish. And you had to come back to the game. Michigan State game, you said, it has to be
Adrian Jarrell.
win 20 to 19. Talk about that.
Say, you know what? It was very similar. It was on the road. Very similar to the Michigan game, where we just, it's that perseverance. We had to continue to fight. I think in that game, actually, I might have rolled my ankle in that game on a pass on the sideline, if I remember correctly. But it didn't affect me enough to where I had to come out or anything like that. But we were on turf, and I think in that game too, big breaks there. I believe Michael Stonebreaker had a key interception on one of Michigan State's scoring drives. That definitely helped and boosted us and helped us secure that win. Where that we were cardiac kids, and yeah, call it what you want. A little bit of luck of the Irish. We definitely had it and we needed it in that Michigan game as well as at Michigan State.
October 6th, Stanford. What went wrong in that game was their overconfidence. Tommy Cordell for 4 touchdowns on a run the ball. What happened in that game? Overconfidence.
I would say a little bit of overconfidence. Actually, no. I'm not going to say overconfidence. I think it was more or less, probably more. I'm not going. Yeah, I'm going to say it. Maybe cracking under pressure because we had gone basically 2+ years with one loss, so we definitely weren't used to losing. And for whatever reason in that game, like you said, touchdown Tommy Wardell and his 4 touchdowns. And the one last play that I wish I could have back, when we drew it up, had I not looked over my right shoulder or left shoulder and looked over my right shoulder, I probably could have had my body position, where that last ditch effort for a touchdown, even though it hit my hands, but the direction, the way the ball was thrown, the angle the ball was thrown, and the angle that my body was going, it would have been one hell of a catch because I was kind of going away from it instead of coming to it if I had looked over my right shoulder instead of my left. And we had literally we drew that play up on the sidelines prior to that play.
At that time, that was like the end of rivalry.
Yep, third game.
29-20. Rocket Ishmael goes 94 yards for the touchdown. Kicked five field goals. We scored 2 touchdowns, but we didn't good enough to actually force a lot of turnovers in this game. And you shut down that one
was again that's special because whenever you play your home team, it's always a special thing. And again, there was three of us from my high school in that game: Daryl, Hurley, and myself. Again, I think they, when I talked to Hurley about that game, they had speed, but Rocket was truly something special. Anytime he had the ball in his hands, yes, he ran a touchdown back on a kickoff, which that was like I think the first time ever, or in a very very long time, that anybody's run a kickoff back against Miami. But again, it was just we had that confidence. We had the players though that could execute, whatever game plan was in front of us. As disciplined and as good of a team as Miami was, we really did. We outplayed them that particular day, and when you have a team that believes you can move mountains. It's incredible to see and to experience. Offensively, I think we were able to do some things. I think I had a couple receptions that game as well. As a tight end for Notre Dame, you don't catch a lot of passes back then. It was more 3 yards in a cloud of dust, 4 yards in a cloud of dust is what is more or less what being a Notre Dame. So you definitely learn how to block if you're a tight end Notre Dame during that era. Oh, very special. They had the noise turned up so loud, crowd noise, and they played Rocky Top. That song Rocky Top over and over and over and over and over and over again. To where guys were just sick of it. And again, just our DNA back then really just boiled down to execution, execute, 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 and play hard. And that's exactly what we did. We were able to punch holes in for Ricky to run through or Rocket. It makes your job on the quarterback much easier if you can have that running game. And I think that still holds true to today's game even. And we just had a mature offensive line, and everybody again we just that belief system and of believing and we love each other and we believe in each other and we have each other's back. We can do anything that we wanted, and that's exactly what we did when we kind of pretty much forced our will on Tennessee. Yep. Yeah, again, it boils down to we didn't execute certain things. We definitely still had people to believe, but guess what? There's another team out there whenever you play a football game, and I'm not going to discredit Penn State because guess what? They believe that they can win as well. However, we just didn't execute what we wanted to do. Even though we had a pretty decent running game, but I'm not sure what the turnover ratio was like for that game. But we bottom line is we did not execute. That was
Wait,
crazy.
talk about that.
That was a bad call because when you look at that call, when you look at that play, there was two referees that were right there. The referee who was right there, just a few yards away from the actual where the quote unquote blocking the back actually happened, did not throw the flag because it was not a block in the back. It was a referee who stood behind him who really did not have, I think, the best view of that. But nonetheless, they won it. But truthfully, they got lucky with one. Um, we didn't execute enough to put up more points on the scoreboard. So that one play should not have hurt us, but unfortunately we did. But it was wild. I was able to play when I was with the Giants. Played with Canavis McGee, who was an outside linebacker at the time for the Buffaloes. And we talk about that game. He's like, man, the punter kicked the ball. That whole game, they didn't kick to him. They never kicked to him. They did not kick to him. They kicked it out of bounds. And that one time, they did kick to him. And when they did, we were like, oh, again, we know as one of Rocket's teammates, you kind of know, like, oh, wait a second, he's got a chance to take us to the house because it was a high, lofty kick. And lo and behold, that's exactly what Rocket did. But we ended up on a short end of the stick because we didn't execute somewhere else in the game.
Because we received the punt, bounced off, few tackles, just
Yeah.
kept going. I remember that very vividly. It was called back in Colorado. Really hung on, 110-9, and it just championship. Let's fast forward to last year, 1991. Again, before we get to that, that was Rocket Ishmael's last season.
Yeah.
That was
He went to Toronto Argonauts. Yeah.
that was a junior. Okay, your season 91. That was an interesting season because now it was history in the making. It was a game changer for college football where Notre Dame have their home games. Otherwise, I can see. Talk about
Yeah.
part of that special moment.
Yeah, that was basically that capped off what we had built the previous years there, and quite honestly, the fan following that guys before us had created, that Subway alumni. Back in those days, to be honest with you, like my freshman year, truthfully, they had a good season prior to that, but before that, if you notice, Notre Dame was always in the top 25 every year, no matter how good or bad they were. That's because we sell magazines. We're a brand like anything else, and we sold magazines. So no matter what, they would always be in the top 25. But now, during my tenure, the class ahead of me, and I was a couple classes behind me as well, we were able to match that lore, so to speak. So that's why we were ranked so high, every year. And that year, especially the previous year, was what was really rocky. It was just like you said, one wacky season. The cover that I was on, literally whoever it was at number one got knocked off like a week later or 2 weeks later. So it wasn't just us. I think Michigan at one time and a couple other teams. It was like four of us, I think, that had it for 1 or 2 weeks and then got beat by somebody who they probably shouldn't have got beat by. But going into that 91 season, we were definitely a very, very talented team. It was Rick Meyer's second year as a starting quarterback. Yeah, it was foreseen to be a great year.
Also,
Mm-hmm.
Played Indiana, that's the first home game.
Mm-hmm.
NBC, talk about that. Well, we got 27.
Oh, he had a great catch. He had a great catch that I get the credit for a lot of times because people thought that was me that was carrying all those guys, and when he hopped on one leg the last 5-6 yards to get in the end zone. So I thank Irv for that tremendously all the time whenever I talk to him. That was that we knew that's a team that we knew that we should have beaten and pretty handedly, which we did. And it's like you said, it kicked off the new era of Notre Saturdays on NBC, and I think the crowd got what they asked for. Is seeing Notre Dame going out there, and it was good to see a matchup against an in-state rivalry as well too. Yes. Yes, where he's diving stretched out. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to play with Desmond with the Raiders, and needless to say, we had to talk about that game a couple times, and yeah, that one definitely hurt us. I think it was either 4th and 1, 4th and 2. He came up with a tremendous catch. He went on, to win the Heisman that year, so that shows you the kind of caliber of player that Desmond was when we played him. And again, that was just one of those times we did not execute the way we should have in certain areas of the game, and they capitalized on them. That should never happen at 4th and 2 play, but you have to take your hat off to Michigan for getting that done, and specifically to I forget who the quarterback was. I don't think it was Elvis. Was Elvis okay? So we had Elvis and Desmond. Huge, huge. Well, to be honest with you, that's a game that Joe Moore was not happy. So we come in at halftime up, whatever, like you said, 35-7 or something ridiculous. When we come out the second half, I think we overthought our game plan and thought we had to change some things that we didn't need to change. We ran a counter trap play numerous times that first half and got big gains out of it. Ricky had a field day. No, not Ricky. Jerome and them had a field day with that. And however, we didn't run that play, but like once I think the second half, and we went away from it. We went away from our game plan, and that allowed them. Tennessee is one of those teams that you can't give them any momentum. You can't give them reasons and plays to get hype off and feed them energy. And they were able to come back and pull off a tremendous win. I believe that was the last game of the season. That was senior day, or last home game. And yeah, it sucked to lose that game. But again, I can't take anything away from them. I think if we had a little bit different game plan in the second half, it wouldn't have been close. Yeah. You know, uh, can't we just defensively we didn't execute. Yes, we had change of guard, whatnot, but we still had people that had been in the system long enough. Offensively, we didn't take care of what we needed to do on offense. Probably some first downs we probably didn't get um, to help keep our defense off the field. Um, and we did not execute our game plan fully the way we needed to pull off that win. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that game was on the road as well. So uh, yeah, yeah, and I remember that game. That game, I think it was weird. One of those weird games, if I remember correctly, where it was sunny, and then it snowed, and then it got cold, and actually got warm. But that's no excuse. We know better than that. However, we went out there and saw him some, and we introduced him to a not so little guy in Jerome the Bus Status who went off that game. Yes, yes.
Draft. So, off and going. Talk about the teams that you want to play for other than the Giants.
Well, the teams that I was talking very closely with, and had to go back for second looks and whatnot, was the Cleveland Browns, and also the Redskins as well. Those were, I would say, probably the three teams. And in that draft, I later went on to find out had the Redskins. Redskins had the sixth pick, but they moved up to number 4 and picked up Desmond. I thought I was actually going to go number 9. Then I thought I was going to go number 9 to Cleveland. When that happened, the ninth pick came up. That's when they ended up selecting Tommy Touchdown Bardell out of Stanford. And then when the 14th pick came up, I got the call from Ray Hanley telling me that they were going to select me at the 14th pick.
What was like playing for the New York Giants? Like, what was like being drafted by?
It was amazing. It was great. It was the New York Giants. It's New York, right? It's the I would think the mecca of the universe in New York City. There's a lot of pressure, obviously, to for wins. And what I think what was kind of special, or that I liked, was that looking back, not knowing that it was actually the end of old school and the beginning of new school. I'm very fortunate that I got to see the end of old school players. I mean, you had guys that have been in the locker room for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, a lot. Completely opposite than the way teams are now, their makeup. I mean, back then, I don't even know if you had 10 guys with 4 years or less experience on a squad. It's completely the opposite now, right? But when I walked into that locker room, you see guys like Everson Walls, Eric Dorsey, Carl Banks, LT, the original LT, Lawrence Taylor, Brian Williams, Big Dog, William Roberts, Steve Diassi, Senior, that is. It was definitely a great experience, and I'm very thankful to have been able to play for great owners too. I mean, the Maris and the Tisch. This is a great, I think, one of the blue blood class organizations in football.
Yeah, like you said, we was talking about like not being there for a long time. That was like the last year of not staying for a long time. Yes, you had free agency, but this was the year of the end because then you had all like overall free agency.
Free agency,
going back. Everybody leaving, not going back. You guys are right with that. That was like the last year where it seems like you stayed together for a long time. Like,
yeah.
Everybody leaving after that. So, all right, unfortunately that season didn't go so well. You go 6-10.
No.
So what was the standout moment of that year? Do you have any recollection?
Not really. I hate to say it, but in that game, but that season, just seeing really the dynamics of a professional football team. It's no secret that Ray Hanley did not have a great relationship with the players. I guess it was known that he was a better assistant coach, but not a great head coach. I obviously did not know that. I'm just going by what I heard. And there was a lot of discourse and a lot of, there was a lot of fighting in-house that was going on that season. And our record of 6-10 was the result of it.
Okay, fast forward to the next season. I want to talk about obviously this Lawrence Taylor's and Bill Sims' last season, last regular season game against the Cowboys. That's a game that everything was on the line, both for the fans, the division, and the NFC. Unfortunately, the Giants lost that game 16-13 overtime, and that was him and Smith's best game ever. He played with a separated shoulder. He did everything with one arm. What about that tough loss?
Oh man, that one hurt because like you said, that we felt that we were doing big things, and our defense was had played well all game. But again, that's one of those games where it's a tight, close race, and the one who made the least mistakes in that game was going to win. And I think Emmett made a big first down that game over the right tackle. I think the right side of the game. He made a great play. He did go in. I know a lot of people are like, okay, was he really hurt, or did he just like to add to his lore and coming back from a quote unquote injury? Don't know. Don't really care. All I know is we had an opportunity to stop him. He made a big first down play to give them enough yardage for their kicker to come in and kick that field goal to win the game.
Yeah, 32 carries, 168 yards. He scored a touchdown and a catch. He had 10 catches, 1 yard. He did with one arm. That's the best game ever by in his career. And that was a tough loss. And then beat Minnesota.
Yep.
Following week, talk about that win against Minnesota.
Yeah, that was felt good. This was my first experience in the playoffs, and actually felt good. But I think I did have a reception that game. It got called back for like a holding penalty or something like that. That to see the intensity. Cause I remember my rookie year where the guys. One of the things that I saw that was like a big difference was just like the speed. The speed of the game in the pros is completely different. I remember watching preseason game tape. It was one speed, and then no lie, that my rookie year, the first game of the season was against Philadelphia, back when they had a young Reggie White and crew, Clyde Simmons, and that Buddy Ryan defense that he ran. And I remember watching the tape and thinking somebody sped the damn film up because everybody's moving fast. And of course, the veterans came to us and like, hey, listen, man, it's like this is a whole new ball game. Like there's different speeds. So you got your preseason speed, you have your regular season speed, you have your Monday night football speed, and then you got playoff speed, and then you got Super Bowl speed. And it just gets cranked up. At every level gets cranked up another notch. And so now in the playoffs, it is just so much more faster because there's so much more on the line. And that game I do remember was obviously winter game. It was sunny that game. It wasn't quite as cold, but I think we were able to put the pieces together, executed very well, and we were able to pull it off. And felt good to catch a pass or two in that game too.
The Vikings won 17. The Giants won 17. Big run by Rodney Hampton. He had a big game. Ran 51-yard touchdown. Scored another one. Ran for rushing yards. He had 161 yards on 33 carries. He's a workhorse.
Yes. All right.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the next week we lose 44-3. Former teammate Ricky Waters, man, had 5 touchdowns, man. Talk about
5 touchdowns, man.
Talk about that, man.
Yeah, man. That's when I like the saying. The saying that I say in those situations are, sometimes you're the fly and sometimes you're the windshield. And that game we happened to be the fly going up against the windshield. Ricky went off that game, and then they went on to win the Super Bowl that year. So, if you're going to lose, I'd rather, if I have to lose, let it be to the eventual Super Bowl team, winning team. So, we couldn't get anything done. I don't know if it was a short week, flying out. Actually, yeah, it was out in San Francisco. We did have that extra game with the divisional or the wild card game, I think it was, with Minnesota. But yeah, we couldn't get it done. We could not get it done, and especially on defense that game too. And actually, both sides of the ball, to tell you the truth.
Ricky Boyce had 118 yards, 24 carries, 5 touchdowns. No, actually, the team that won that Super Bowl in '93 was Dallas. They won.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. That is correct. Correct.
They lost the following week Dallas.
Yes, I'm sorry.
The Cowboys won it back to back. That's what's 92. Okay, 94. The team had a winning record. We go 9-7. Do you have any memories of that season? You had a winning record. They go to the playoffs that year. Actually, that was your last season as a Giant. Talk about that.
Yeah. No. 90s came in, and you slowly made your way into starting lineup and more playing time. By then, it was just my third season. Was definitely getting into a groove there. Um, to have a winning season, especially in New York, it is contagious. Winning is contagious, just like losing contagious. But that was Dan Reeves' second year, I believe, and we I think everybody bought in. We had the right pieces there, and we were able to pull off what I thought was a successful season. I think I was playing H back, not necessarily like a stand still tight end, kind of like the birth of what they have now. So I was able to move around a lot, which I enjoyed.
Um, me, like, we're at the Giants were kind of disappointed because they did not. You obviously had Howard Cross, you had Aaron Pierce. When you got drafted by the Giants, it looked like you was going to be tight end that was going to revolutionize that position. You were 6'6". Like, there was no other guys, like, tight ends on your level for your size. Like, it was like before Gronk, before Ricky Duck,
Yeah.
Ohio State, or Nick Coates. I might be wrong
Yeah.
now, but you came in the league like you was going to be that next, great tight
Yeah.
end. What happened?
Yeah.
What happened? Like, what went wrong?
Well, we offensive scheme wise, we came in there, and that's what I thought too as well. I think even though I'm very 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 glad that I was a Giant, alumni. Back then they didn't really throw the ball a lot. Even when
Right.
Mark Bavaro was there, they weren't throwing the ball a lot.
Right.
So it kind of makes you think, like, why would you draft a person like me if you weren't going to really commit to going to that? Basically, back then it was the West Coast offense, right? You had Brett Jones with the San Francisco 49ers and what's his name? Eric Green in Pittsburgh and Mark Chmura in Green Bay. Those guys that had that West Coast offense, tight ends were a big, big, big part of it. We were still very old school. It was like run first, pass second, and that's kind of what happened. And I think also with Ray Hanley getting fired, that was the guy who drafted me. And if you remember correctly, if you're a Giant fan, which obviously you are, Dan came in there and got rid of every Giant that kicked his butt in '86. The only person you couldn't get rid of was LT, which you were not going to get rid of. But if you look at that team within that first year, everybody that was on the '86 team, they were gone, basically, in those 2 years. So, truth be told, I probably was only a Giant that last 2 years there was because George Young, who was the GM then and still at that time, I was his pick. And that's probably the only reason why I remained on the team.
Yeah, you're right. The Denver Broncos team, the Giants team had a lot of Bronco players. Michael Brooks on that team.
Mark Jackson.
Yeah, Mark Jackson. He had a lot of, Arthur Marshall.
Yep.
I think Brad
Yep.
we so field goal kicker. I think
Yep.
with Denver. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he just brought like Denver Bronco players.
Made it like New York West, basically.
Yeah.
Or I should say, or Denver East.
Yeah. Okay, so Jacksonville Jaguars, they were an expansion team. You go to them, and had some success as a team wise as far as the team goes. Go to the AFC Championship game in '96. Talk about that for unfortunately we lose to the Patriots. Talk about that. Also, you beat Denver. They was
Yeah.
seed. Talk about that.
So that was like that was an amazing run we had. If you remember correctly, I think at one point we were like 3-7 at one point in the season, and we had a player only meeting. And obviously back then people, Coach Coughlin had a reputation about him about being a tyrant coach basically, which wasn't really far from the truth, but. We had a players only meeting. We said, look, guys, if we're going to do anything, it's going to be up to us in this room right here. Young guys, don't listen to how he says it, listen to what he says. And, bottom line is this, they make the calls. We're the ones out here got to execute. So we got to go out here. If we want to win, we got to do it. We got to do it. We can't rely on anybody else but ourselves. And so we went and we ran the table. And we won out, I think, the last 4 or 5 games of the season, and then we go up to actually Buffalo, and we get a win there. We handed them their first playoff home loss ever, and that was a game that Chris Hudson came off of a safety blitz and knocked out Jim Kelly, and that was, I mean, like literally, he went night night, and Natron had a great game, great running game that game. I did have one reception that game, to keep it for a first down, I believe, and then that next week where Buffalo or not Buffalo, but Denver, who was at 14-2, again we were the underdogs. They were like, man, the newspaper's talking about, we don't belong even in a cereal bowl. So why are we playing Denver Broncos? We went in there. Mark Brunell went off. Natron went off. We just believed, and that year was a real testament to how we were with the guys. Where it was a very, very close knit team. We did everything together. We were always together, and not just at practice. I'm talking off the field as well. And I think that attributed to the fact that we love being on the road. We love shutting crowds up. I have a brother-in-law lives in Denver, and he said that town was like somebody died for the full year. So Denver fans can thank the '96 Jaguars for your back-to-back Super Bowls because we woke up we woke up a lying giant by going in there and snatching a win.
Yeah, that Denver team in '96 was 13-3 actually, and they made the top seed in the AFC playoffs. And also that team had great receivers, very underrated receivers. Jimmy
Yes.
Smith and Keenan McCardle. They
Yeah.
might have been like the best dynamic duo in the mid to late '90s.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then you had Willie Jackson as well. You had Natron Means and James Littleman Stewart out of Tennessee at running back. You had Mark Brunell, Tony Baselli, Dave Wydell at center, Tony Braxton, defensive end. Uh, uh, yeah, I mean, to name just a few of the guys off of that team. Um, that was a good, base. And also, too, commend, which the Carolina Panthers went the opposite way, right? They went with a much older team than we did. And let's not forget, they also were in the NFC Championship game. So
Yeah,
that was the first time, two expansion teams, both in their second year, making it to the championship games in their conferences.
Yeah. So you played 3 seasons with the Jaguars, and you go to the Raiders and the Cardinals in your career. Talk about the time with the Raiders and the Cardinals.
The Raiders, man, I loved being a Raider. Being a Raider was great because it's Raider. You get involved with Raider Nation. It was John Gruden's first year coaching as a head coach, which was amazing. Loved playing for Gruden. John is exactly like you see when he was on Monday Night Football or his quarterback show. Very, very, high energy. I tell you what, playing for the Raiders, it made me faster. Even though I was 28. It was my seventh year in the league. It makes you fast because everybody out there is fast. The Raiders play fast, and it was a difference being a Raider. Just how we practice, and it definitely made me faster. I was fortunate enough, able to play with Ricky Dudley. We did a lot of tight end sets, and it was great to play for John Gruden. That year, I was able to get a couple balls. Had a couple of games where I had like 3 receptions each in each game, and I think we ended up being like 8-8 that year. So again, it was fun to be a Raider.
How about the Cardinals?
Cardinals. By now, it's tail end of my career. Again, it was a great group of guys. I really loved going to work every day there with those guys, and just being with those guys definitely made it much better. Our record really wasn't great for whatever reasons. We just couldn't get it done. No disrespect, to our team, but with Jake Palmer before he was in Denver, still a young quarterback. You had Rob Moore at receiver, and I didn't play a whole heck of a lot, but actually how I got my ninth season. I was actually let go right before the last preseason game. But then, as that year went on, Dave McGinnis ended up being the head coach when Vince Tobin got fired, and a couple weeks into it, Dave brought me back, and I was on the team for like 4 weeks, and that's how I got my ninth year. Actually, is him bringing me back for 4 weeks.
Okay, interview portion of the show is over, man. Thank you for your time, man. You gave great stories, man. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much, man. Much appreciated. Thank you.
It's Derek Brown, one